Shalom, I'm Rabbi Jonathan Ginsburg of the Ezra Habanim Now's Township Jewish Congregation in Skokie. This video is about creationism versus evolution. I simply don't understand how intelligent people cannot believe in evolution. You have to not read the newspaper. You have to not read any journals. You have to close your mind off to everything that is intelligent. Now, why do I say this? Well, when I was in a young grade in an Orthodox day school, I brought in a book about dinosaurs, and my teacher scoffed and said, "Oh, fossils were put here as a test of our faith. The world's only 5,700 years old." Even as a little kid, I know that was stupid. The world is billions of years old. And in order not to believe that, you have to close yourself off to all intelligence. Now, if people are threatened by the first chapter of Genesis saying, "Oh, how could the Bible be a lie? I mean, if God said he made the world in 7 days, it must be 7 days." That is a complete idiotic idea. The book of Genesis never says it's a scientific book. In fact, there's no joke about this, where somebody says to God, "God, how long for you is a second?" And God says, 1,000,000,000 years. "And how much for you is a penny in our terms?" And God says, $1,000,000,000. So the fellow says to God, "Can I have your penny?" God says, "In a second." How do we know that a day for God, according to the Torah, the first chapter of Genesis, is our day? It's more likely 1,000,000,000 years. And so when scientists tell us that the world is 20 billion years old, we just discovered what we think is a planet 20 million light years away, 20 light years away. We'll be able to visit probably sometime in the future. That doesn't contradict anything about faith. It's just nonsense. And why are people so threatened with the fact that we evolved from lower organisms? In fact, the Torah says that God created us, but it's clearly there's an evolutionary pattern with things building up. You don't have to take the Bible literally. It's not meant to be a scientific book. It's meant to teach the most basic ideas about life and about humanity. And so, as we think about this in Jewish terms, we reject the fanatics and fundamentalists and simply think it's preposterous to suggest that the world did not evolve. Everything evolves in life. In fact, it's very interesting that in the discussion among the 10 presidential hopefuls in the 2007 first presidential Republican candidate debate, the moderator asked how many of them did not believe in evolution, and 3 out of the 10 actually raised their hands. Now, I know there's a huge percentage of Americans who believe in creationism, but it's just complete nonsense. And I am a very religious person. Many religious people don't necessarily believe that the world was created exactly, precisely to the minute and day that the Genesis chapter 1 says it is, simply because a 24-hour day for us could be 1,000,000,000 years. In fact, this supposed planet that was just suggested by science based on gravitational pull that's 20 light years away, well, their annual year is 13 days. So the editorial in the paper said, well, how long then is Christmas? 15 minutes? Who knows what kind of cycle God lives on? And so a day for God easily could be billions of years. I believe, as Einstein did, that there is an Aristotle. There's a creative force that started the universe. But to go from there to saying that every single letter of Genesis chapter 1 is scientifically true is just complete nonsense and unnecessary. You can be as deeply a devout and religious person as conceivable and still accept the tenets of science. That's part of the beauty of Judaism, of intelligent Judaism. We say in the end of our holiest prayer, the Shema, Adonai Elohechem Emet. God is the God of Emet, of truth. And you know about Emet? The word Emet has the first letter of the alphabet, Aleph, the middle letter of the alphabet, Mem, and the last letter of the alphabet, Taf. Because God contains all wisdom, and all truth is contained in God, and therefore we believe that God is the God of truth. And as many very important rabbis throughout Jewish history have said, there's nothing that could ever be discovered in science that would contravene and contradict the basic tenets of Judaism. Because Judaism ultimately says we believe in truth, and as human beings given brains by God to discover the truth, we continue to go with where science takes us, to not only not to contradict religion, but to enhance religion.